All right, we're going to start working on modeling our assets and bringing them here into Unity. But you know what I was thinking? As we create these and as we texture them and bring them in here, it would be nice to have the lighting set up here in the room a little bit more like it's going to be for the final version. Because take a look at the lamp here. Let me zoom in here with the F key. And you can see the reflection on this object, right? You can see that. And all it is the reflection of this big environment, just that horizon line and the sky. And that's not very realistic to what's going to be in the room. In addition, this directional light here is more like sunlight, in that it's just parallel rays of light spread out infinitely across the scene, and lights the scene in a way that we really wouldn't see inside an interior room. And as I'm thinking about it, this particular room is going to be the home of two guys who are trying to keep a secret. The overall project I'm working on here is for this to be an apartment of people who are trying to hide, don't want people to see them, so the blinds are closed. The place is usually pretty dark even during the day. So thinking about the story and what's going to happen in this environment makes me think we should go ahead and work on some of the lighting now, so that as we bring our other assets in, we can get a sense of how they're going to look and what tweaks they might need in terms of the texturing and even the modeling. So let's think about lighting here. First of all, let's deal with that reflection. As we saw on the lamp here, the reflection here is just not at all appropriate for an indoor scene. What we can do is use an HDR image to kind of fake the reflections here that are happening on relatively shiny objects. So what I've done is I've gone out to Google and I've searched for HDRI images, and I've used the search tools and chosen large, and I've found some HDR images here that look pretty good. Now keep in mind, if you are actually producing a game to sell, you need to acquire the rights to images to use them, right? Or create them on your own. But for our purposes here, I want to find an image that is kind of an indoor scene, and I found one here. I think this is going to be kind of nice. This image can be found at Luger Texture here. I'm going to open this up right here. So please go check them out. They have some nice textures here. So I'm going to use this image. So the reason why I like this, that it's an interior scene, it has the ceiling and floor, it has some wood color to it. I think it's going to work well here in our scene. So let's bring it in. I'm going to click and drag it right into my assets folder right here. And there we are. I want to select it, and I want to change it from a texture to a cube map and hit apply. Now you can see that the texture has been kind of wrapped around a sphere here, and this will give us the ability to apply this to a cube map material. So let's create that material now. I'm going to right click, go to create material, and let's call this HDRI, so we know what it is. And for this, let's change the type of material or shader it is from standard to skybox and cube map right here. So now that we've done that, we can take our cube map here and drag it right into the cube map here. There we go. Now you can see we're inside that cube map, right? We can see all around here. Now we need to apply this to the lighting of the scene. So here in lighting, we want to drag our new cube map, our HDRI cube map here, right into the skybox slot. So I'll grab this, drag it up here, drop it there, and now look what happens. The quality of the light changes quite a bit now because we're getting a huge amount of diffuse light coming from that image. And if we zoom in here and kind of tumble around, you can see that the reflection is more what we would expect for an interior scene. We've got wood, we've got a floor, we've got ceilings. So you can really get a sense that we're in an interior space. Now, this particular scene has a kitchen right here, and it's reflecting that kitchen counter here. We can change what is reflecting from this angle by rotating the image around the scene. So if I come back over here to the material and go back to the inspector, we can see in the materials settings that we have this rotation field, and we can click and drag that and maybe move the reflection around like that. So now we're not seeing that kitchen in the reflection. We can keep going on around and see what we can get. Yeah, that's not bad there. So now we've got a different quality of light in here. And you know what? We can also go ahead and take away that directional light and see what happens. I'll right-click that and choose Delete. And now we've got just a general diffuse light coming in from our HDR image here. So here it is. Now, we're going to want to put other kinds of lights in here, of course, because we're going to need shadow, light, and dark areas, pools of light. We're going to really want to try and create a mood with the lighting. So I do know that I'm going to have probably a bare bulb hanging over here somewhere, kind of in the middle of the room. The guys who live here aren't real into design and decoration. So I'm going to go ahead and create just a point light, at least for now, just to get a sense of the scene. I'll right-click over here, choose Light and Point Light. And there we go. So there's our point light. I'm going to drag it over here. Say it's going to be hanging right around here. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I think maybe just kind of hanging a bare bulb right around here. And I want to get a sense of the shadows here as well. So we can come over here, and with the light selected, I can turn on, say, hard shadows. You can begin to see them there. Now, one thing about it is when you turn on the shadows, you may notice that the shadows are kind of separating out from the objects. And one of the main things you need to ground an object to the floor to make it seem realistic is to have those shadows connecting with the object. So what we can do is change the bias. If you click and drag this, you can see that you can take the shadow away from the object and bring it closer to the object, like that. So I want to get it so it's maybe like 0.001, really close there. You can also change this shadow near plane, and you can see how it can move away from that as well. And I want this pretty low down like that as well. Now we can also adjust, say, the range of our point light. So maybe it doesn't illuminate the whole scene. Maybe it just illuminates kind of that center part of the room. So we can play with that quite a bit. What I'd also like to do is get rid of this image in the background here. To do that, we can come over to the main camera under the player. And under the clear flags, we can change that to solid color, change that to black. And for the viewport, if we want to turn this off back here, we can just come up here to this pull down and turn off the skybox. There we go. So now we've got the skybox in there. It isn't visible, but it is visible still in our reflections here. So that's what we want. And if we run the game, we can see that our reflections are still visible here in the lamp. So that's helped with the reflections. And as we go through the process of creating and texturing our assets here, we might want to, say, reduce the amount of light here in the room We could always come back to our HDRI material and we can reduce the exposure a bit, turn it down a bit so it isn't quite so hot. So this will just allow us to try and get that final look of the scene as we go, so we can really tell how our objects are going to look in the scene. Now I think what I'll do is go ahead and create a cube and scale it and bring it in for the roof or the ceiling here. And maybe I'll go ahead and texture these walls as well in the same way we did these. And then we can begin moving on and creating more of the objects.